Find out how a wife rejected $10 million in cheating payments and embraced an incredible change. In the quiet streets of Maplewood, Sarah Thompson's world came crashing down. The picture-perfect life, the idyllic house, the backyard barbecue, the laughter of her 2 children shattered when she discovered her husband, Mark, in the arms of a younger woman. It felt as though the ground dropped from beneath her. Her heart raced, panic gripping her chest like a vice. How could he betray them so coldly? Amongst the familiar faces of neighbors who shared morning coffee at the diner or exchanged pleasantries in the grocery store, Sarah felt utterly alone. Days turned into weeks, filled with sleepless nights and tears. Then came the ultimate indignity, a staggering $10 million offered by Mark's affluent family to keep her quiet. It was a dazzling sum, enough to wipe out every financial worry she had ever known. But with each passing day, the allure of that wealth felt like a poison, tainting the very essence of her being. Underneath the weight of betrayal, Sarah found herself at an unexpected crossroads. It was a group of local veterans, each sporting caps decorated with medals, who rekindled something deep within her. They congregated at the diner, sharing stories of sacrifice and resilience over cups of coffee. Listening to how they fought for their country, she felt a flicker of hope ignite, their stories of struggle reminding her of hard work and integrity, values that once molded her life. She could have easily buried herself beneath the ashes of deceit, but Sarah wasn't made for that. With Mrs. Johnson, a neighbor who had weathered her own storms by her side, they formed a support group for women like her. They'd meet on Tuesday evenings after the sun dipped behind the horizon, exchanging stories of heartache and healing, laughter mingling with tears. It was a refuge, a sanctuary where they powered through life's punches together. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just as Sarah began to find her voice, Mark reared his head again. He couldn't stand the thought of her speaking out, using his family's wealth as a weapon to silence her. The tension escalated, unraveling the bonds of their shared life in the town. This led them to a pivotal town hall meeting, an event where locals gathered to be heard. Swallowing her fear, Sarah stood before the community, sweat gathering in the small of her back, heart racing. Enough is enough, she cried, voice trembling yet resonant. She spoke of loyalty, integrity, and what it meant to fight for one's worth. The crowd grew silent, jaws dropped as awe hung in the air. Her words resounded like a rallying cry, awakening something dormant in them all. As murmurs of admiration mixed with skepticism rippled through the crowd, Sarah realized she was no longer just reclaiming herself, she was igniting a movement. What began as one woman's betrayal turned into a testament of bravery. Yet, just as her spirit soared, shadows loomed. Mark's family whispered threats of legal action, ready to unleash their money weapon on her burgeoning cause. At that moment, Sarah stood at a cliff, caught between the love she had for her family and the fight for personal justice. Would she trick herself into compliance for a semblance of unity, or would she continue to rise, fully aware that this newfound power would forever change her life and the lives of those around her? The air buzzed with tension in the town hall as Sarah's statement echoed in the silence. She felt the weight of her neighbors' gazes, a mixture of admiration and unease written on their faces. It was in that moment, standing tall and trembling on the cusp of a new chapter, that she understood the depth of her resolve. She wasn't merely speaking for herself, she was voicing the fears and dreams of countless women who felt stifled, overlooked, and silenced. When the meeting finally ended, Sarah slid into a corner booth at the diner, her heart still pounding. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee offered some comfort, but her mind raced with thoughts of repercussions. How would Mark retaliate? The whispers she had overheard, the threats of lawsuits hung heavily in the air, but so did the hope she had ignited. Mrs. Johnson joined her, sliding into the booth across from her. Her eyes shimmered with pride. "You were incredible, Sarah. Absolutely incredible. Do you think I've done the right thing?" Sarah asked, uncertain. Her voice wavered as the weight of her decisions pressed upon her. "Without a doubt. You've sparked something here. You might be the voice that changes everything for us." That reassurance kindled a small flame of confidence in Sarah, but as soon as it flickered to life, doubt seeped back in. Could she handle the fallout? The consequences weren't just personal anymore, they would ripple through their children, her friends, and the entire town. Days passed, and the tension grew. A local news station caught wind of Sarah's speech and wanted to interview her. It sent a surge of panic through her. The thought of laying her heart bare for strangers felt terrifying, but part of her was exhilarated. This was an opportunity to bring the truth into the light. As Sarah sat in front of the camera, the bright lights illuminating her face, she felt a mix of dread and urgency. "I'm here today to say that betrayal doesn't define us," she began, her tone firm but gentle. She shared her experience, her voice breaking at times but never faltering. As she spoke about the support of her friends, the laughter they shared, and the stories of resilience from the veterans, something awakened in her. She finished with a plea: women deserve respect and dignity. None of us should be afraid to share our stories. Her heart raced as the interviewer nodded, intrigued. But as the clip aired, Mark's family didn't take kindly to the sudden publicity. From their luxurious mansion, they unleashed a storm of threats, their lawyers diving into action like hungry sharks. "You'll regret this, Sarah," one of Mark's family members had said coldly the next day, lurking at her doorstep with chilling finality. Despite her fears, she pressed on, buoyed by the supportive messages flooding in. Women began to share their stories online, reaching out to Sarah, finding courage in her willingness to stand up. It was a growing movement fueled by collective heartache. Yet beneath that rising tide of unity, Sarah sensed the impending clash. Would her resolve withstand the barrage from Mark's family? The stakes were higher now. A woman's fight for justice was always compounded by more than her own struggles. It was a fight that had the potential to ignite a revolution, a force that for so long had been buried under shame and fear. Then one evening, just as Sarah was leaving the diner, a figure stepped from the shadows, a tall, familiar shape. It was Mark. He wore a hard expression, desperation etched deep into his features. "We need to talk," he demanded, his voice low and tense. The seconds stretched, 1,000 questions hanging in the air. Sarah's heart raced, torn between the past and the uncertain future. What could he possibly have to say now? The silence between them felt heavy, each second pulsing with unspoken words. Sarah squared her shoulders, retreating slightly but firming her resolve. She had already braved the storm. Mark's presence now stirred old memories, but also ignited a flicker of anger. "What do you want, Mark?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Mark's brow furrowed, capturing a part of the boy she had once loved, now overshadowed by a man haunted by mistakes. I think we need to talk about everything. This isn't who we are," he stammered, his composure cracking ever so slightly, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability. "Isn't who we are?" Sarah echoed, her chest tightening. "You think your family's threats and your betrayal can just be brushed aside? I'm not going back to that life, Mark." "Sarah, please," he implored, voice low and urgent. "I've made mistakes, yes. But I want to make it right. I don't want to lose you, us, this town." The desperation in his eyes stirred something conflicting within her. They shared laughter and dreams that now felt tainted by lies. But beneath the hurt, a part of her wanted to believe he was genuine. Make it right, she scoffed, bitterness lacing her tone. What do you want me to accept? A check to keep quiet. A lifeboat tune to comfort, while I drown in shame. Mark stepped closer, the tension crackling like static as he reached for her hand, hesitating before pulling back. I don't want you silenced. I want to help us heal. Can't you see that your fight has stirred up something? Everyone's watching, watching. Her heart pounded. You think they care how you feel? Mark, I'm fighting for what is right. Not for the luxury of being comfortable. Not for the sake of appearances. His shoulders slumped under the weight of her words. I've been a fool. I know I've hurt you. But there's more at stake here than just us. Your actions may cost us everything. Maybe it's time we assess what everything really means, Sarah shot back, finding the strength in her anger. I refuse to let your family's greed dictate my worth. Mark's face twisted in frustration, but there was a fear behind it. A fear of losing not just her, but the image of success he had always clung to. If you pursue this, people will get hurt. People are already hurt, Mark. I refuse to stand back while your family wields power like a weapon. I've fought too hard to stay silent. The raw intensity of her words hung in the air, a battle cry that filled the silence. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it, the gravity of her declaration sinking in. What if I chose to fight with you? He offered, despondence twisting into hope. Together. The abrupt unexpectedness of his offer took her breath away. This wasn't how she envisioned their conversation. Would she dare ask for unity when his hand had played a part in her despair? As she sifted through the words hanging between them, fear and bravery, love and loss, the weight of their shared history blurred the line of her certainty. Together? She questioned, while a flicker of hope battled against the scars of betrayal. What does that even mean for us? The moment pressed around them, electric with the possibility of change. Could they really face the storm together? Would it fracture them further, or unite them in their fight against the looming shadows? Inside, her heart raced with the weight of potential. Hope braided with fear felt both exhilarating and terrifying. But deep down, she knew she had to choose wisely. The choices made now would echo into the future. But before she could respond, a figure loomed behind Mark, arms crossed. It was Mrs. Johnson, and in her eyes, Sarah saw a reflection of their community. The fight wasn't just her own anymore. It was everyone's. What now, Sarah? Mrs. Johnson's voice sliced through the tension like a knife, drawing all their gazes. They stood on the edge of transformation. A choice awaited. Would she embrace a partnership, however fragile, or would she navigate this fight alone, ready to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost? Sarah's heart raced as she processed Mrs. Johnson's question, a mixture of anxiety and indignation bubbling inside her. The elderly woman stood firmly, embodying the strength of their community. This was not simply a matter of personal betrayal anymore, it was a battle against everything that had been festering under the surface for years. Mrs. Johnson, Sarah began, seeking the right words to express what she felt inside. This isn't just about Mark or his family. It's about us. About all of us. Her voice trembled slightly, but she pressed on. We can't let fear rule our lives. They've kept us quiet for too long. We deserve better. Mark shifted uncomfortably beside her, clearly caught in the tension. But if you push too hard, if you go too public, he cautioned, voice barely more than a whisper. No. Sarah snapped, her voice breaking through the uncertainty. I've asked for too long to be heard. The time for asking is over. My fight is theirs now. Your family may have deep pockets, Mark, but our community is rich with heart. Mrs. Johnson nodded slowly, pride emanating from her like warmth on a winter's day. The old woman stepped forward, her expression resolute. "You are right, Sarah. We need to come together. If this is about healing, about reclaiming our lives from the shadows of greed, then it's time we face this head on." Mark glanced at Sarah, the spark of hope dimming in his eyes. "And if they retaliate? If it gets worse?" "They already retaliated," Sarah said, feeling a fire ignite within her. "They have fought to crush spirits, to keep us silent. But I won't let that happen anymore." As the words escaped her lips, Sarah felt a swell of energy ripple through her, burning away remnants of fear. This wasn't simply her fight, it was a call for those around her to wake up and stand tall. The faces of their townspeople began to flicker in her mind, those she had seen suffering at the hands of power. Each face represented years of hurt, and she couldn't bear the thought of silencing them anymore. "Together," she repeated, softer this time, like a promise. "This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who has ever been pushed aside." Mrs. Johnson stepped closer, her voice thick with emotion. "There is strength in numbers, Sarah. If you're ready to step out, we are ready to be by your side." Mark looked at her, confusion mixed with admiration. "And what does that mean for us? For what we had?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted, the weight of uncertainty heavy in her heart. "But this fight has to come first. We can't live in fear of what your family might do. The truth is bigger than anything we could ever imagine together." The silence that followed felt monumental, rich with the weight of change. Sarah felt anchored in her decision, yet fear flickered at the edges of her resolve. She was stepping into a storm not just of her own making but one that had been brewing for far too long. "Are you in?" she asked Mark, searching his eyes for anything that showed he was with her on this journey. "Will you choose hope over privilege?" He shifted, visibly struggling with his thoughts, and for a moment, time stretched between them, blending pain and promise into something palpable. Then Mrs. Johnson spoke again, her voice steady and clear, reaching into the depths of uncertainty looming over them all. "We won't stay silent, Sarah. Together, we can be the voice of those who fear to speak. And if Mark truly cares, he'll be with you every step of the way." As Sarah glanced around, she saw nods of solidarity from others gathering nearby. Infused with newfound strength, she held her breath, waiting for Mark's answer. Would he step into the light with her or retreat once again into the dark shadows of his family's empire? The moment hung, ripe with tension and possibility, waiting to unravel. Mark took a deep breath, his gaze darting between Sarah's fierce determination and the gathered townsfolk who had begun to hang on every word that was spoken. For a moment, the world outside faded, leaving only the heartbeat of this moment. Sarah felt her heart pounding against her chest, the pressure mounting like a dam ready to burst. "Sarah," he finally spoke, his voice low but charged with complexity. "What if by standing with you, I lose everything? My family, my future. Is that future worth it if it means standing in the shadows?" She countered, her voice unwavering. "If they can see that what they've built is rotten. Mark, we have a chance to change things for all of us. They may have wealth, but we have the heart of our community behind us." Around them, nods began to ripple through the crowd, encouragement blossoming like wildflowers in a forgotten field. Mrs. Johnson opened her arms, as if to embrace all that hope, resilience, and strength collectively represented. "Fear is a silence they rely on, Mark," Mrs. Johnson pressed gently. "Your family wants to keep you locked away from what it means to belong, to feel each person's pain." Mark swallowed hard, emotions colliding like turbulent waves inside him. He had spent so long trying to balance his loyalty to family and his growing admiration for Sarah's bravery. The air felt thick, constricting around him. He realized that stepping up with Sarah meant diving into an uncertain transformation, leaving behind the comfort of privilege. Just then, a voice rose from the crowd, breaking the tension. "We need every willing hand, Mark. Together, we can take back what they've stolen from us. This is about our community." A murmur of agreement coursed through the group as more voices chimed in, urging him forward. He felt the heat of their collective breaths, the way hope swirled amongst them like a tangible force. With every heartbeat, the weight of his indecision began to lift, replaced with an exhilarating sense of urgency. Maybe you're right," Mark finally admitted, his voice trembling with hesitation and burgeoning resolve. "Maybe I've let them dictate my choices for too long." A silent gasp went through the crowd, the power of his words settling in. Sarah's heart soared, her spirit alight with the unyielding unity forming before her. "Then let us show them," she said, emboldened. "Let them know that this community won't stand down anymore." But even as she spoke, a sharp realization struck her. The line they'd crossed together echoed through her mind. It wouldn't be just her battle anymore, it had expanded beyond personal squabbles and hidden secrets into something larger. "Wait," Mark interrupted, his face casting shadows of doubt anew. "What about my family? They will come for us. They won't sit back while we expose them. What if they dare?" Sarah shot back, the fire in her eyes igniting a spark in others around her. "They've modernized their oppression, but they haven't stripped us of our power. We are our own voice, we can rise like the tide." As the energy pulsed, Mark looked at Sarah and then to the crowd, their eyes hopeful, echoing her belief. "I'm in," he said finally, his voice full of conviction. He reached for her hand, a gesture of solidarity illuminated by the setting sun behind them. Cheers erupted, a testament to unity and bravery. Yet beneath that cheer, Sarah felt an undercurrent of uncertainty. Would the community's spirit withstand the oncoming storm? As they locked eyes, a deeper understanding washed over her. She would stand with them, but the course of their struggle was far from certain. Change could be brutal, painful, and transformative. Then, just as the celebration began to swell, a chilling figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. A familiar face hovered just outside their circle of light, and jolts of dread raced through Sarah. What would this person uncover? What secret had followed them that was about to shatter everything they had just built? The air shifted, anticipation curling thick like smoke. Before she could shout a warning, the figure stepped forward, eyes fixed on Sarah. "Is it true?" they asked, voice dripping with a mix of accusation and intrigue. "Are you really prepared to turn your back on them?" And in that moment, Sarah knew this was just the beginning of an even more daunting confrontation that could break apart their fragile alliance. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a familiar face that stirred a whirlwind of emotions in Sarah. It was Lisa, Mark's sister, her expression a complex mix of anger and betrayal. The crowd quieted, the cheers fading like echoes in a cavern. Sarah could feel the weight of Lisa's gaze, a spotlight of suspicion shining on her and Mark. "What does it matter to you, Lisa?" Mark asked, his voice trembling slightly. "We are fighting for what is right." Lisa shook her head, a mixture of frustration and disbelief lining her features. "What is right for you? You don't think you're throwing away everything we've built? This isn't just a game, Mark. You can't toy with these people's lives." Mark's chest clenched. He had always tried to keep harmony within the family, but his loyalty was being pulled apart, and he wouldn't allow it to be sacrificed anymore. He opened his mouth to respond but found that words escaped him. "I get it," Sarah interjected, stepping forward. "You're scared, just like Mark was. But turning a blind eye won't help any of us. Your family is winning because they thrive on division. But here, we are giving each other strength. Lisa's expression shifted for a moment. Confusion flitted across her features, but then it hardened again. You think it's that simple? This is about survival. It's about power. And you're playing hero while the rest of us will pay the price. Is it heroic to let your family exploit ours? Sarah shot back, her voice stronger than before. Hiding in the shadows only keeps the damage going. Either we rise together, or we fall apart. The gathered crowd watched intently, breaths held as tension thickened in the air like an impending storm. There was no denying the heat of the moment. Sarah could feel the pulse of the community, wrapped around her like armor. But she also felt Mark's tension beside her, as if his entire future hinged on this confrontation. Do you really think standing with them is the only way forward? Sarah continued, voice softer now but still firm. You have the chance to choose a different path, Lisa. Join us instead of fighting against us. For a fleeting moment, Lisa hesitated. She glanced around at the faces watching her, some filled with hope, others shadowed with skepticism. This wasn't just about her family anymore, it was about a community daring to rise against those in power. But then, Lisa recoiled, her defenses reerecting. I can't. You don't understand what it's like to be on the inside. You think this is some noble crusade. It's not. You're throwing away your futures on dreams that aren't possible. I want to be part of it. With those words, cold as ice, she turned to leave, but Sarah felt a surge of urgency. Wait. Please, Lisa, it doesn't have to end this way. Lisa paused, her back to them, shoulders tense. She turned her head slightly, eyes glinting with suppressed pain. Don't reach for something that will only break you, she whispered, before stepping into the darkness beyond the circle of light. A wave of disappointment washed over Sarah, tinged with the deep resolve that once more solidified her commitment. The moment of confrontation had come and gone, but the impact lingered, a reminder that not everyone was ready to embrace change. Mark reached for Sarah, his hand finding hers. There was an unspoken bond of understanding passing between them, a reminder of the precarious path they'd chosen. But even as they stood united, a chilling wind swept through the crowd, lifting the hairs on their arms. A series of whispers began to ripple, soon morphing into anxious chatter. What might happen next? Who else might come after them? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the nearby market square, startling everyone. Eyes turned toward the sound, and Sarah's heart dropped. What had just been unleashed now threatened to expose everything they had tried to build. What awaited them on the other side of that chaos? As the tension mounted like a coiled spring, one question loomed: were they ready to face whatever was coming, or would their courage shatter under the weight of truth? The crowd shifted nervously, eyes darting toward the market square, where chaos erupted in the shadows. Sarah's heart raced. Was it the enemies they had fought so hard against, or something more? Every instinct told her it was bad news, and every face around her echoed that fear. Stay close, Mark murmured, gripping her hand tighter. She nodded, feeling the solidarity between them, but it was flickering now like a candle in a storm. Another crash punctuated the air, sending a ripple of panic through the throng. People shouted, some ducked for cover. Sarah could see the silhouettes of figures moving swiftly, creating a sense of dread that can only come from uncertainty. The adrenaline surged through her veins. She turned to Mark, the questions burning in her mind. What do we do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with urgency. I need to get to my sister, make sure she is okay, Mark replied, his determination igniting a spark within her. But I can't leave you here. We need to gather everyone, Sarah insisted, looking around at the frightened faces. If they're attacking, we can't let them divide us. We have to stand together. Mark nodded, his eyes meeting hers. There was fear there, but also a strong undercurrent of hope. As he moved to rally the crowd, Sarah took a deep breath. She had to be a leader, to be the voice of strength they needed. "Listen up," she called out, projecting her voice above the din. "Whatever is happening out there, we have each other. We've come too far to let fear take control. Remember why we are fighting. We are stronger than they think." There was a pause, uncertainty hanging thick in the air, but then someone shouted out, "Yeah. Together." A ripple of agreement spread like wildfire. Sarah felt the heat of collective courage igniting around her. Mark came back to her, fear still etched in his features but determination set in his jaw. "Let us move toward the market. Together, we can face whatever's happening out there." But as they stepped forward, another loud bang pierced the air, closer now, echoing off the walls of the buildings around them. The crowd flinched. Sarah's stomach dropped. What if it's too late? She breathed, the doubt creeping in. In that split second, a heavy weight settled in her chest. Was their forward momentum about to crash? Just then, a figure limped into view from the side street, bloodied but determined, dragging themselves toward the gathering. The crowd gasped as they recognized the new arrival. It was one of their own, Danny, a beloved member of the community who had often been seen in the front lines, fighting alongside them. His face was pale, and his shirt ripped open, revealing a gruesome wound across his side. The sight of him ignited both horror and a fierce need to protect what they had created together. "Help!" Danny gasped, his breath shallow and frantic. They're coming for you." All the atmosphere shifted, adrenaline pumping in every heartbeat. They didn't have time to fall apart. "Stay with us, Danny. We won't to let you down," Mark shouted, his voice firm. As the group rushed to aid Danny, Sarah felt a swell of responsibility rise inside her. Their fight was just beginning. But as she worked alongside Mark and others to help Danny, a dreadful realization loomed. The real battle was ahead of them and would test everything they had learned about unity and hope. "How do we fight something as big as this?" A voice quivered from the crowd, filled with fear. Sarah turned to face them, breaths fast and heavy, determination burning bright. "We don't fight alone." But behind her resolute words lay an undeniable truth. If they weren't careful, the very fabric of their community might unravel in the chaos. With their lives on the line and the darkness pressing closer, would they rise together or crumble under the weight of fear? Danny lay on the ground, the color draining from his face as people rushed to his side. Sarah knelt beside him, her fingers trembling as she pressed a cloth against his wound. It was deep, and each heartbeat sent fresh blood seeping through her hands. Panic almost overwhelmed her, but she clenched her jaw and focused. They didn't have time to waste. "Stay with us, Danny. Just hold on," she coaxed, her voice steady as she met his desperate gaze. The fear she felt inside morphed into something fierce. They couldn't let him go, not like this. Mark was calling out for someone to get water, for anyone to find medical supplies. But all Sarah could see was Danny's pain. She leaned in closer. "What happened?" she urged softly. "They're coming from the hills." A wave of them, he gasped. They're organized this time." A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just some random attack. This was planned. "Listen," Mark shouted, commanding the crowd's attention. "We need to get Danny some help, and then we need to figure out our defenses. We can't let fear dictate our next move." The crowd shifted, murmurs of agreement rippling through. There was tension in the air, but also a flicker of resolve. They parted, a few members rushing off to find assistance, but many remained, their eyes glued to Danny. Sarah could sense their fear, a collective weight hanging over them, but it was lessening, even if just a bit, with each passing second. They were here, together. And together, they might stand a chance. Mark, Danny whispered, pulling him down closer. You need to get everyone ready. It's not just about protecting your sister anymore. They want all of us. That's why we're here, Danny, Mark replied, determination circling in his voice. We will fight. They've underestimated us before. With renewed strength, Sarah pressed harder on the wound. She caught another glance at the crowd, still buzzing with urgency. They had to band together, but she could feel the fear seeping back in. People of Havenwood. Sarah shouted, her voice ringing with a mix of fear and strength. We've already survived so much. Remember how we built this community from the ground up, how we wouldn't let anyone tear us apart. Now, we face this threat united. Cheers erupted from the back. One by one, people were starting to stand taller, their determination breaking through the haze of panic. Danny needs us, Mark said, his voice strong now. We rally behind him. We show those who threaten us that we are not afraid. The chant then grew, rolling through the crowd like a wave of heat. Together. Together. Flashes of resolve ignited the once dim expressions around them. They weren't going to back down. As Danny's breathing began to stabilize, the energy shifted. Though fear lingered at the edges, they all seemed to connect through a shared purpose. Sarah could see it in their eyes, they were ready to fight, together. Just then, a woman broke through the crowd. It was Anna, the town's nurse, her arms filled with supplies. She hurried to Danny, her face pale but focused. What happened? We need to get him to the clinic, he needs stitches, she said, already ripping open a bandage. Danny's eyes widened, swirling with urgency. No time. He gasped. We have to prepare. They are coming now. The mood shifted again, a strange mix of dread and adrenaline. Sarah's heart raced faster. What do we do? She cried out, fear trickling back in. Defend what is ours. Someone shouted from the crowd. The heat of the moment ignited more voices, each one echoing the same resolve. They weren't just going to let this wave hit them unprepared. As they gathered makeshift weapons and barricades, Sarah felt the fire back in her chest, like a heart beating with purpose. But in that fire lay a deeper concern: what exactly were they about to face? Then, from the distance, a growl rumbled through the air, an unsettling sound that set every hair on edge. Sarah froze, her heartbeat echoing loud in her ears. They're already here, she whispered. How would they respond to the darkness closing in on them? Would they maintain their unity in the face of fear, or would the onslaught break them apart? The growl echoed across Havenwood, a sound that could only mean trouble. It reverberated deep within Sarah, stirring her instinct to fight or flee. She glanced at Mark, his face set with determination. Danny's ragged breathing was like a drum, a reminder of how fragile their time was. Form a line. Mark barked. We need to protect the perimeter. People began moving almost instinctively, scrambling for any items that could serve as weapons. Branches, broken pieces of furniture, anything they could find. It was chaotic, but within that chaos lay an undeniable unity. Sarah looked around, seeing fear morphing into action. They were banding together, and it filled her with hope. But more growls followed, a low rumbling that seemed to rise from the hills. It sent shivers skittering down her spine. Sarah! Anna shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. I need your help with Danny. Rushing back to Danny's side, Sarah tried to push down her rising panic. Anna was already unpacking her supplies, her hands steady even in this storm of uncertainty. Stay with me, Danny, Anna said, her brow furrowed in concentration. Just breathe. Danny nodded, but his gaze kept shifting, scanning the distant tree line. "They're coming, Anna. You don't understand." "Just focus," Sarah said, forcing herself to stay calm. "You need to stay focused on fighting through this." She wiped the sweat from his forehead, hands trembling, but she kept the pressure on the wound. Outside, Mark was shouting commands, the others rushing to gather supplies. Sarah caught glimpses of faces around her, some were terrified, others steely with resolve. They were becoming a team, old friends and newer acquaintances, all united by the same cause, to protect what was theirs. "Is he going to be okay?" A tremulous voice came from behind her. It was Gina, a neighbor Sarah had spoken to only a handful of times. "He will be," Sarah replied, forcing confidence into her words. "He is strong. We all are." The growling got louder, closing in on them, breaking the thin barrier of bravery. Sarah's heart raced faster, almost painfully. The reality of their situation was setting in. They were facing something they weren't fully prepared for, and deep down, she worried whether their resolve would be enough. Gina clutched the handle of a frying pan tightly, her knuckles white. What if they breached the defenses? A ripple of uncertainty flowed through the crowd, and Sarah felt the energy shift slightly, like a taut rubber band ready to snap. "We can't think like that," Mark countered, his voice booming through the trees. "Remember what we've survived. We fought for this community, and we will fight for it again." The chant resumed, a growing chant of strength and defiance. "Together. Together." As the noise faded into a tense silence, Sarah exchanged glances with Anna, who offered her a nod. They needed to be ready. But just when Sarah felt that spark of hope reignite within, the first figure emerged from the tree line. A silhouette, dark and menacing, darting forward, followed by another and another. The growls sharpened, transforming into furious roars that rattled their bones. Panic threatened to unspool the tight-knit bond they had forged. "Get ready," Mark shouted, holding his makeshift weapon tightly. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered, terror tightening around her throat. "Sister, we do what we must," Danny murmured, despite the pain, shooting her a brave smile. "We fight." In that moment, fear hung heavy, but so did a reckoning. There were no choices left. They would either stand strong together or be consumed. As the wave broke through the trees, Sarah steadied her breath. This was it. Would they face these invaders together, light cutting through the dark? Just as the first clash erupted, a new sound echoed through the air, a high-pitched scream, unmistakably human. Who else was in danger? What had they unleashed? The crowd held its breath as the echo of the scream rippled through the air like a chilling gust of wind. Sarah's heart raced. She swung her gaze toward the tree line, realizing that nothing was as simple as they'd hoped. Fear clawed at her insides, but in that moment, she felt a powerful push of adrenaline surging through her veins. "Stay sharp," Mark shouted, both an order and a rallying cry. The energy shifted among the townspeople, they stood as one, fear entwined with fierce determination. Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she held Danny's gaze, a silent promise swirling between them, a promise to protect their community no matter what. People began organizing. Some formed a line in front of Danny, while others rushed to grab anything they could use as a weapon. Anna moved seamlessly between them, tending to Danny while ensuring everyone knew their roles. Sarah felt guilt flaring within but quickly quelled it. They were in this together. "Everyone, listen," Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the rising tension. "We are not just fighting for ourselves or Danny. We are fighting for the heart of our community. We are fighting for a future. Each one of us matters." A murmur of agreement rolled through the crowd, solidifying them as one unit against the tide of uncertainty. They were drawing strength from one another, and each shout of determination added layers to their resolve. From the shadows, figures emerged further, and the growling grew louder. They advanced through the underbrush like predators stalking their prey. Sarah strained her eyes to see. Their forms were just out of reach, dark and distorted by the fading light. "Stand ready," Mark urged again as the figures began to materialize into clear view. Their faces were twisted with malice, reflecting nothing of the unity and hope that Sarah had witnessed moments before. As the first of the intruders broke through the tree-line, a figure lunged toward them, growling and snarling. The crowd flinched as the creature appeared, a large dog, fierce and wild. It was soon followed by more dogs, each one looking more menacing than the last. "Not people, but beasts," someone cried out, panic lacing their voice. Fear erupted among the group, echoing through the ranks like wildfire. But then Mark stepped forward. "Hold firm. They're just dogs. We can handle this. Remember, all of us chose to be here for each other. Let us not let fear break us." Wordlessly, Sarah surged forward, grabbing a large wooden stick that had been discarded by the diner. She felt the warmth of Mark and Danny supporting her, strength pulsed through her as she swung the stick. "Show no fear. Together." As the pack of dogs barreled toward them, bare teeth glimmering in the fading light, Sarah focused on one approaching. It lunged, snapping at her, but she steadied herself and swung the stick with all her might. She didn't want to hurt them, but they couldn't betray the safety of their community. More joined in, the people of Havenwood working in tandem to fend off the wild beasts. The air crackled with energy as they fought together, shouting encouragements to one another. Each time a stick connected, a cheer erupted, igniting the resolve that filled the air. Suddenly, amid the chaos, Danny's voice rang loud and clear, "We are stronger together." With those words, a powerful wave of unity surged through them, infusing every person there. With raw determination, they steered away the pack, corralling the terrified beasts back into the woods while creating a wall of protective energy. Slowly but surely, the tide turned in their favor. The wild dogs, sensing the desperation of the townsfolk, began retreating under the onslaught of their combined bravery. After what felt like ages, the last of the dogs turned and fled, leaving behind a breathless crowd. Cheers erupted, wild and jubilant, echoing through the valley. Sarah felt her heart thundering as shouts of victory filled the air. Together, they chorused, a declaration of their unity, stronger than the fear that had threatened to consume them. But among the jubilation, a sobering realization edged in. This had been a trial by fire, but more challenges lay in wait. They had come out victorious, but they were exposed and vulnerable. Mark's family wouldn't give up easily, nor would those in power. Just as Sarah began to feel the weight of their next steps, she saw Lisa emerge again, stepping into the light amid their victory cries. There was uncertainty and something more behind her eyes, a glimpse of change. "Sarah," she called, hesitating at the threshold of their small gathering. I saw what happened, and I didn't understand before. We can't let them win, not like this." The crowd fell silent, the previous chaos morphing into deep curiosity and anticipation. "Will you stand with us?" Sarah asked, unsure of what to expect. Lisa stepped closer, the fear in her eyes slowly giving way to something brighter. "I'm scared of what my family could do," she admitted, the vulnerability cutting through her tough exterior. "But I'm terrified of losing what we built together as a community even more." The tension that had hung on the crowd began to melt away. A few courageous souls took steps toward Lisa, a collective acceptance that surged among them. "Together like we've always been," Sarah urged. "That is how we'll keep going. Through the good and the bad, we forge ahead." Lisa nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Okay. I'm with you." Let us face whatever comes next. As Lisa stepped fully into their circle, the fragile threads of unity fortified once more, binding them all together through shared fears and dreams of hope. Together, they were more than a small town combating the legacies of betrayal and uncertainty. They were a resilient family on a journey toward light and healing. The horizon was painted by dusk, and Sarah stood tall among her neighbors, the air filled with urgency but fueled by hope. With Mark's hand in hers, Danny recovering at their side, and Lisa standing by their community, they realized they were stronger together. "Let us prepare," Mark said, taking charge again. "We will not let fear define us any longer. We stand our ground." And as they began to strategize for what lay ahead, each step resonated with the promise that they would rise above, embracing the challenge, assured that whatever happened next, they faced it together, united and unwavering. Please, if you feel the energy of this incredible transformation, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and show your support. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, the moment is here.